Hi, welcome to the land in Jefferson, Maine. I'm Dave, and this is the third video that I'm doing. And the last video I got a lot of comments on and a lot of views, so I want to thank you. One of the things I was hoping to accomplish with this channel was not only to be able to share my wife and I's experience of building our off-grid home and starting from raw land, I also wanted to learn. And I learned a lot of little tidbits just from my communication with everybody through the comments section, so thank you very much for doing that. I did get a lot of questions in regards to the panels and cleaning them off, so I figured I'd start outside. It's a gorgeous day out. It looks beautiful, but it is only 10 degrees, so I kind of bundled up. I haven't turned my vest on yet, but I may. So I'll take you down to the barn. So I'll show you what I use to clean off the panels. I have it here at the corner of the barn. Get it on there. There we go. So this is what I use. I bought it from Amazon. Let's see, this is my third season I've used it. I paid $30 for it, and I got exactly what I paid for. It worked good for 2 years. I took good care of it. I brought it out the beginning of this season, opened the clips to extend it, and the whole thing just fell apart. The whole innards just basically disintegrated inside. So what I ended up doing is took all the stuff off of it, and I used rivets to hold it together. I did put a little bit of metal tape just to help seal the seams, and I actually like it better this way. I do keep this piece in the garage so it doesn't freeze, and then come out and just put it on. Because when I was using it, when it was extendable, all those clips that were on it, you had to be very careful that you weren't scraping the panels. And you know, the rod would turn as you were using it. So doing it this way, I actually like it better, because now I don't have to worry about that. And then after you used it, a lot of times trying to get it back together with what snow was on it, sometimes it struggled, and that's probably part of why it fell apart in the first place. So, but I do recommend one of these, and it works really good. So I laid the pole on the ground and set it up on the panels, and you can see I make it about halfway with it sitting on the ground. So once I actually pick it up and start working on it, I can clear most of the panels off, over 2/3. And once you clear that much with the sun on it, it doesn't take long for it to warm up and everything just falls off. And as far as the power that this system creates for us and how we use it, 4 months out of the year, there's more power than we can use. Usually in the summer, those 4 months, our batteries are charged by 8 o'clock. If it's nice out, we run an AC during the day. We run a dehumidifier during the day, even though we really don't need it in the basement. I do it just because. But as soon as the sun goes down, you have to shut those things off because the draw in the battery is huge. And then we just open all the windows. And then 2 months in the spring and 2 months in the fall. Again, not a huge abundance of power, but we have everything we need and a little extra. And then the 4 months in the winter, that's where we're very careful. We are always watching, the weather app on our phone, and we don't care about storms. That doesn't bother us. It's the lack of sun, and that's what we watch for. This time of year, I look at our batteries every morning, and if they were at 100% when the sun started setting, by the time I get up in the morning, they're usually around 92%. This morning they were at 93, so it is starting to change. In the summer, I'll get up and the batteries will be at 97%. I mean, we don't use much at night, and that's why as soon as the sun comes up, 5 in the morning, once it hits the panels, the batteries are charged. So, I mean, sometimes you look at it in July and the sun's on it all day, and all that power, someday I got to think of some different things that we'll do in the summer so I can try and use all that power that we're making or potentially could make, and we're just not using it. And as far as the trees, I did cut down and removed a lot of trees. This time of year, that big tree right there, that's about where the sun's coming up, and it was over that tree before 8 o'clock this morning. And then the sun doesn't even come close to getting behind these trees because it's way up there. And it's not until this tree right here that will start getting a shadow. And this time of year, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, that's when it will start casting the shadow on the barn, which is right here. Well, welcome back inside, down in the battery room. It's going to take a second to show you the watering system that I use. This is the jug that I put the water in, and I use distilled water. And when I fill this jug, I do make sure I don't touch anything around the top of the jug of water or this container, because I don't want to contaminate it with anything on my fingers. And so far, I've had no issue with anything growing or changing colors or in the water. It's stayed nice and clean. So, and most of the time, I either got to put 2 or 3 gallons into the container. There she goes. So now I'll show you how it works. On the sides, some markings, and I did take a Sharpie and made them a lot easier for me to be able to read. And the only thing that's coming off of that is the part that you hook up to the water feed and the power, which is a 12 volt, we used to call it cigarette lighter connection. And then I have a thing that I plug in, and on the end is the other feed, so I can just push them together. And I can do one from right here, and I just take a towel and I set it over where the feed is. Take off this connection, pop that in here, take these 2 pieces and just put it together. I started at about 4 1/4 gallons, and typically each 8 batteries as a unit take about 3/4 of a gallon, sometimes a gallon. And there she's starting to, you can hear the tone changing. And it's done. And then we disconnect it. And then put the cap on. And so that one's done. There, I'll try and make this so that you can see it. Basically, I just push those 2 together, and you can see that little spinning ball in there. And let me take this, and now we connect it, and you can see that ball is spinning, and we just wait for it to stop. And here it goes. You can hear it changing tone. And there it stops spinning. So that's it. Then it's done. And you just disconnect here and put this back on to cover it up. So, and that's why I use this little towel. I got to replace it with a new one pretty soon, but just to keep everything dry. And we'll go to the next one. So there, and that last one too took just under a gallon. So they both were pretty close to the same. And then do this one. There, she's starting to change her tone. Now there's that 1.5 target. That stopped. So, and actually it's right at 1.5. So there, that's it for watering the batteries. And the biggest thing I watch for is each section of 8 batteries that I fill, that they're all taking relatively the same amount of water. If the one's taking more, then there's a chance I have a problem with one of those 8 batteries. People did ask about the batteries that I have. They're Deca ProMaster, they're 6 volt, and I did write down they're 8L16 batteries. And people also asked why I picked those, and bottom line, it was price. We did the garage, and the foundation was built earlier. That was kind of our first phase, and we had the foundation where the house was all capped over and covered with rubber, so it went, I think it went 2 winters without a house sitting on it. And when we had everything set to get going, it was halfway through 2020, so COVID was here. And by the time I got to the point of buying a lot of stuff, including the batteries, it was 2021. And if you remember back then, trying to get stuff was crazy. And so when I looked into batteries, I found these batteries. They were available and they were a good price, so I got them. I'd like to say I did a lot of research and, aimed to pick the best of the best, but no, this was a good price and they were there, and so I got it. It was weird during that time. Some of the things, like the generator that we have outside, I wanted a 12,000 watt generator. They were not available, and they had no idea when they'd come in, so I ended up with a 14,000 watt generator because they had one. So it was a weird time back then when just trying to get stuff. We were fortunate. I feel we were fortunate living in Maine because we were pretty sparse up here anyways. And, with pricing and everything else, we rode that wave, and we came out pretty good, but it was still an interesting time to go through. So, but now I want to show you what I did so my wife can dry her hair. There. So as far as my wife being able to dry her hair, the reason that's an issue, I was told by many people that batteries do not like to power things that create heat with resistance, like a hair dryer and a toaster. When those coils get red hot, that batteries will do it, but it will shorten the life of the batteries. So that's why we had to come up with a solution. For camping, she does have a little gas cylinder powered curling iron, but they don't make, I tried to search to find some sort of hair dryer, and there's really nothing. I found one battery powered one. It was very expensive and it did not have good reviews, so I'm assuming because it hurts batteries, it's something you wouldn't see on the market. If it is doable, I'd love to see Milwaukee make an M18 hair dryer. So here's my solution. This is a 2,000 watt solar generator, and what I did is I made a cord for it that plugs into one of the 20 amp outlets, and I have it come up here to a box, and there's where I change it over to 12-2 wire. So that plug that comes off the generator goes up to that box, turns in 12-2, and then I ran that, because I did wire the whole house, I ran that up into 5 outlets. I put 2 in the kitchen and 1 in 3 bathrooms. We use ivory color for all the switches and outlets, but those particular ones I used gray. I did use a GFI outlet for them, and what makes it really handy is they have that little light on them that's lit when it's powered, and that's just very handy to know whether we have the generator off. So far, very happy with how it's performed, because obviously we're only using it for heavy duty stuff. We use it for hair dryer, toaster, coffee machine, air fryer. We have a pizza turning thing, an electric wok, different things like that. And even the crock pot. It was going to be sunny all day, I think last Thursday, so I used the generator. I made chili, which was really good, but I used this generator to get the crock pot going. I let the batteries get charged. Once the batteries were charged, I did change it over, because once it's on low and it's already hot, the draw I never saw get above maybe 300 watts, and So as long as the sun's out, I was comfortable to have the crock pot running. We spent $2,000 on that generator. If it only lasted a year, well then it wasn't a good solution, because we can't spend $2,000 a year to dry our hair. So, but I said if it lasts 10 years, then that's $200 a year. I said now we're getting, that's not bad, especially if it's saving our big battery bank and making that last longer. And if it lasts more than 10 years, yeehaw, you can't keep it plugged in, because then what happens is you're just using your batteries from your house through that, because it is designed to use the grid until the grid goes down, then you use the batteries. So we only plug it in when we're charging it. And the other drawback is you can't leave it on all the time, because even if you don't use it, the battery is still, it uses energy just being on. But we're used to it. I come down early in the morning, I exercise every day right with the generator. I'm down here, so I just turn it on in the morning, we go out and do our coffee, and then I'll shut it off later. And like I said, the little light on the GFI outlet is very handy to let us know whether it's off or on. So, but I'll show you some of the outlets. So here in one of the bathrooms, that's the outlet, and you can see a regular outlet right there, but because it's gray, that's the one. And if we have company here, we let them know if you're drying your hair, that's the outlet you got to use. Here's one of the kitchen outlets. So also I wanted to talk about the refrigerator. That's a big purchase, and it's a big power usage for your off-grid system. And we also picked up a small freezer that we have down here. And with the work that I was doing, I was very familiar with R290 refrigerant, which is a propane. And it's a very efficient refrigerant. If you take a commercial two-door upright, they say it has as much propane as what's in a disposable lighter. They're that efficient. And now the propane it's not like a propane refrigerator where it runs the refrigerator. It's still an electric unit, but the propane is the refrigerant. So when we went to the appliance store, I asked the salesman, I said, I want a refrigerator with R290 in it. And he didn't know what I was talking about. I explained to him what it was, and he did some research. And what he found out is R290 is only commercial, which is where I was using it as. But for residential, they use butane, which is R600 refrigerant. And so we went through trying to find a butane refrigerator, which, they're coming out now. There's a lot of difference between propane and butane, but one of the big things is propane can still operate below freezing, and butane can't. Once it hits freezing, it doesn't work well. So if you go to buy a freezer and they tell you this freezer can't go into a garage, that chances are that's what it has for refrigerant, because it can't go into an unheated garage because it'll stop working. So, but the refrigerator that we got, and including this freezer, is both butane. And also in the refrigerator, the compressor is it's set up differently. I think it's a scroll compressor and not a can. But the biggest change is that compressor never shuts off. So you don't get this stop and start, which isn't good for your system anyways, because you get that bang like on a water pump. But it never shuts off. It just constantly runs, and it's running really slow. And as the refrigerator calls, or the thermostat calls for the temperature to be dropped, it just speeds up. And then once the temperature gets there, it slows down. And so it should last a lot longer, just because it doesn't have that stop and start. It's like the difference between, it's better for your car to go down the highway than to drive through a city and stop and start. So both of the units that I have are that, to where the compressor is just constantly running. It's just at different speeds based on the needs, and both of them use the R600 or butane for a refrigerant. And I'm very happy with them. I hope they last. I know refrigerators, if you get 10 years out of them, that's great. So we're at 2.5 years, and so far they've both been doing well. We got this little unit because my wife, we have apple trees, nectarine, cherry trees, we have blueberries, and we freeze them all. And what happens, especially with nectarines, and apples are the same, if you cut them up and put them in a bag, you just end up with a big block of nectarines, and you can't, you bang them on the granite countertop and break your countertop. So why we wanted an upright is we got little cooking sheets, and she can cut them up and place them individually. We put them in the freezer just overnight. Then you can take them out and put them in a bag and then cut up more. And so that's how we freeze our fruit, so that when we take it out, we can take it out in one piece and not just one big chunk of fruit. There, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I enjoyed doing it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. What I want to talk about in the next one is the problems we ran into building an off-grid home. Some of the obstacles we ran into, you would have never fathomed that it was going to be a problem in the first place. And somebody had commented, they had asked about my background, so I thought I'd take a second and just share that with you. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old, and I learned to drive a truck. And when I was around 20, I had heard about a company called Hershey's Ice Cream. They were in New Hampshire, and I knew they were expanding north, and I wanted to be part of that expansion into Maine. I did call them every other week for 2 years. I finally got a job with them. They hired me in 1985, and in southern Maine they had rented a little garage where they'd swap the truck once a week, full of ice cream, and I'd empty it throughout the week, and then they'd give me another full one. It took me 2 hours to get to work, so I'd drive down there and I just slept in the truck, in the cab. Back then they had bench seats, so it made it somewhat comfortable. But it wasn't long until they gave me the opportunity to sell and expand Hershey's Ice Cream in the Maine, and that's what I did. I was able to grow the company to the point to where we finally built the distribution center and a big freezer in Augusta. And so I ran that and sold ice cream for 38 years. So anyone in Maine, if you bought Hershey's Ice Cream, I thank you so much, because that was a help in what I was doing. So if you have any questions about ice cream, I am the person to ask. If you have questions about batteries, I'm learning to be the person to ask. And my wife, she still works. She loves her job. She's a beautiful, sweet lady, and someday you'll meet her. She doesn't want to be on camera just yet. But fortunately, with her job, that allows me to have insurance and be retired. And now I'm putting all my effort and work into trying to get everything ready for the summer for our wedding venue that we're just starting this year. Someday I'll do a video on making tables. That's been taking up most of my time right now. Plus this way I'm inside the garage and not outside. It's too cold to be outside. So again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to the next time. Thank you.